Hi, this is Alex Skolnick from Testament. Today I'm going to be looking at the solos from the Testament songs Practice What You Preach and the brand new More Than Meets the Eye. So a quick word on the tuning. The original recording of Practice What You Preach was done in standard tuning. Nowadays, when we play the song, we have the guitars tuned down a half step to 430. And that's how I'm playing it today. The solo section starts out with an intro played by Eric Peterson, and it's a melody based on the vocal melody of the song, and it's kind of like this. All right, so the solo starts out with a 16th note pattern, and it's based on these acoustic licks I was working on at the time by Al Di Meola and John McLaughlin. And it's something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's some variations I do when I do it live. It's not always exactly like that, and it might have even been a little different on the album. But it's roughly that idea, and that segues into the next line, which is in C sharp. Here's the same idea, very slowly. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so the next section is over C sharp, and I'm thinking of this as Phrygian mode. This whole solo section was originally a modal exercise that I had just for practicing over the modes. And I tried to cover all the modes, at least the minor sounding modes. And it does cover most of them, and luckily it worked for this song. So the first one is C sharp Phrygian, right? And the mode is this. And the riff is just D to C sharp. It goes to F sharp, AOM. Okay, so over that, I'm playing this. Again, I do variations, so I might play it faster, or I might play slightly different notes. But basically, it's just a legato pattern up C sharp Phrygian. Same idea, a little slower. So then it goes to the F sharp Aeolian section. So there I'm doing a kind of a classic blues lick, and this is inspired by a lot of the Jimi Hendrix, Jeff Beck licks. Like one of my favorite Jeff Beck licks is right, which is just playing on those two strings, and then this great Hendrix lick. So I'm kind of inspired by those licks, and I'm just doing this. That's kind of taking this pentatonic lick but making it modal, because it's got these scale tones. and I try to grab a harmonic at the end. That's going to be different on every guitar because different guitars have different harmonic placement on them. So on this guitar, I try to remember it's right above the neck pickup. A little slower. That's kind of influenced by flamenco licks. I listened to a little bit of flamenco back then. Most of the flamenco I got into was a result of rock or fusion players. Eddie Van Halen had done Spanish Fly. Dimiola and McLaughlin had both been influenced by and applied flamenco ideas to their acoustic playing. And they'd also done recordings with the great Paco de Lucia, the flamenco artist. So this whole idea. If you did that on an acoustic guitar, it would have a Spanish flavor. A little slower, maybe. As soon as it hits this note, this A flat, the rhythm playing here, and I do this fast. Right, which is also kind of Spanish influence. Okay, so it's just like trill picking. And modally, I'm thinking of that as A flat Phrygian. So it's kind of like a key change. So it's just fast picking, then down the scale. It's just at a faster tempo. Okay, now the rhythm moves back up from A to B to C sharp. Okay, so from A to B, I'm thinking A Lydian. I'm going back up that scale, pretty much straight up the scale. So it's almost like I'm mapping out the modes. A Lydian, B Mixolydian. But instead of continuing, I'm just going. All right. Okay, so technically this note, this E flat, it's technically wrong. Yeah, because it's being played over this rhythm D to C sharp, so it should be a D. But because the rhythm's moving so fast, it doesn't really clash. So while I'm holding this note, you're mostly hearing the D chord, and it seems to work. So I'm changing the flavor. So there, that's really more of a C sharp Aeolian shape. And I run up that mode, C sharp Aeolian, on one string. And again, live, I try to go for these harmonics. So that's all on one string. That pattern slowly is just. now I do this lick. Now that comes from ideas like classical melodies, Bach Prelude and Fugue. Yeah, so I never learned how to play those properly, but I would learn like bits and pieces and try to work them into what I was doing. Also, the theme from The Exorcist kind of has that same feel, which is obviously based on the Bach idea. But that's just a B minor. Right, B natural minor. So right there, the rhythm, we're coming out of this. It moves down to B. So it's like a B minor rhythm all of a sudden. That's why that seems to work. And then it rides on the A flat. So then I go back to the A flat idea that I was doing before, which was the fast picking. But I stay on that for longer. So now it's like. It's basically starting on that high A flat, trill picking, down the scale, one octave, same thing down to the next octave. So slowly, trill picking. So it's just that, but with really fast picking. Oh, then it goes to B flat. So I just do a pentatonic bend. Right? It's just based on just like a blues pentatonic pattern. So then the rhythm goes to E, down a tritone. It's sort of a Stevie Ray Vaughan influenced blues lick. Yeah, totally different flavor from the rest of it. At tempo, it's like. And on the record, I got feedback, and I think on that guitar, it was one of these old Ibanez's with the floating bridge. So I did the whole whammy bar solo. I don't like whammy bars anymore. I don't use them enough to justify having them on my guitars. And I think guitars sound better without, my personal opinion. So now what I do live is I do the same lick. I walk up to the amplifier getting this feedback, and I just do a bend kind of like this. Yeah, so it's sort of a natural whammy bar. Then I play rhythm. We both, Eric and I both do this. And then in harmony, we do this pattern. This is based on E melodic minor, which I had recently learned at the time. So I was dying to use it in a song. And then up an octave. So it's like this. 1, 2, 3. That's Eric's part. I do the harmony, starting from B. So then I hold this note, Eric Eric's playing the rhythm, and I just do a fast E natural minor run. So he's playing this. And I'm going, so basically it's just tearing down the E minor scale. A little sloppy. I play it better now than I did on the record, but that's basically it. It's just burning down E minor as fast as possible. And then I join in the rhythm, and then we're off. This was recorded in January, right before the NAMM show. Flew out there, did it, flew to LA, did NAMM. It was kind of a whirlwind. Pretty much created on the spot. With most of the solos, I would sit there for like 20 minutes or so and just try to develop an idea and see what worked. I often use this Korg Pandora, which is like a little headphone amp instruction tool where you can record off CDs. I mean, it's great for transcribing, but I was taking the rhythm tracks and just recording the sections that I was soloing over and just looping. Kind of use that to develop ideas, and it was a big help. Okay, so this is the solo for the Testament song, More Than Meets the Eye. I play the first solo. Eric Peterson comes in with harmonies for the second solo, and we tuned the guitars down a half step. So we're tuned down to 430, and the album was recorded this way. All right, so here's the first lick of More Than Meets the Eye, and it's kind of similar to what I did in the Practice What You Preach solo way back in 1989. Except this time it's slightly lower on the fretboard, but the same idea, a minor flat 5 scale. Okay, so at tempo. Do it even slower. 1, 2. So the next thing I do, I go into a pattern based on the diminished scale, not the diminished arpeggio. And I talk about this a lot. A lot of people think diminished scale is this. That's the diminished arpeggio. The diminished scale is this. Okay, so this is a pattern running up and down that scale. Basically up and down the diminished scale. That's all diminished. And this is right here is a chromatic jazz idea where you take a note, a target note, in this case G, and you approach it 2 notes above, 2 chromatic notes. So one thing I might do is take that pattern and apply it to diminished, going up in minor third. So that's just snuck in there. So then I go up these notes. And this is a diminished arpeggio, except I'm skipping this note. Normally you would do this. So I'm skipping this note, cut it going to right to here, the B flat. Play that 3 times. And then up in minor thirds, which is a great way to travel up the neck. Okay, so starting on the high note that I ended on. Okay, so those are just bends. E, D, B flat, A, E. And now this is another diminished pattern. Okay, so at tempo, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. All that is, if you did that on 1 string, and I'll often do this too, I'll often take ideas that I find on 1 or 2 strings going up and down the neck and apply them to a lick across the neck. This is just going down in fourths. It's just that in minor thirds, 3 frets at a time. But in triplets. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So if you do that across the neck, you have to figure that out. But you know, it's conceptually simple, but it sounds complicated in a good way. Okay, so the way I'm looking at that, I'm looking at this as a minor flat 5 arpeggio. Right, like a minor 7 arpeggio would be this. A minor 7 flat 5 arpeggio would be this. So I'm looking at that. This is E minor 7 flat 5, but I'm starting on the flat 5. Then I'm doing a similar chromatic lick to what we did before. Okay, and then that goes into this last lick, which is just octaves. And then Eric comes in with his harmonies.